for the Racketeers.
I have a question about threads. As someone who's much more closely related to JDK, OpenJDK has just done some really amazing work with virtual threads. I'm curious if there's anything similar in or coming to Racket.
What would virtual threads correspond to? Is it something that you can allocate to an OS level thread, or
they're like read?
I think
They don't require, they just sort of happen, like the pooling happens magically under the covers.
Racket's in the opposite situation that Java was in. Java.
Get in my
Yes. Can I?
Where'd you? So.
Okay, so the situation with Java was the opposite of what it was with Racket. Java had real threads, and everyone wanted fake threads. Racket has fake threads, and now Matthew's adding real threads.
But a different answer is, I believe that virtual threads let you basically not try to think about how many operating system threads you want in the way that you don't have to think about that in Go, say, or in Haskell, or in Erlang. And that's not quite the situation right now in Racket, but it's possible that at some point in the future, you will want to just say every thread is a potentially running in parallel thread. Right now, I don't think that's the best way to get performance, but that's not guaranteed forever.
The thread pool abstraction is meant to get us somewhere along those lines. So
Java has the same thing too. They have their own thread pool abstraction, and that's how you get virtual.
yeah.
So the JVM virtual thread pool is system managed with the roughly proportional CPU number of threads. When you create a thread, you can say, I want this to be a virtual thread. It gets multiplexed onto the thread queue using delimited continuations with prompts to do the context switching and some really clever stack stuff.
Yeah, so it sounds familiar. I mean, I think the community is going to have to tell us the right tweaks to the design here. Because I thought maybe there should be a default pool, but wasn't sure, so left it out for now.
To keep the topic going, I think doesn't Racket have it's called futures, and it's real threads, but you can only do a little. It's like a really weird component at the same library. Is that going to become deprecated now that we have actual threads, or is that going to stick around and still be useful? How do you think about that?
It sticks around. The implementation of the new threads is backed by a combination of a feature and a coroutine thread. There are some advantages to the feature abstraction. It has to do with being context independent and certain sort of error situations delaying the errors to a particular useful time. So I think that abstraction will stick around. There may be less pressure to improve that in certain directions than there was before, because parallel threads give you a lot more of the flexibility that we were trying to inch towards with futures. So still there, it's not going to go away, and in the implementation, it's sort of still the central point.
In the release notes for 9.0 or in the docs for it, it might be helpful to have a table comparing and contrasting futures, places, original threads, parallel threads.
Yeah, I think the guide could still improve a bit on this section, yes.
But just to be clear, there is discussion of exactly that, although it doesn't have a table. But the question of which of these constructs you want is discussed in the guide section on parallelism. Yeah. But yeah, I think it is always hard to know exactly what the most useful thing to explain is, and so it will take some time before we write all of the right things in that section, but the beginnings are there.
Critical feedback is welcome.
Stop like.
Oh yeah, let's take it. So here's a question from online. Does the creation of the Racket Foundation entail a change in Racket's relationship with Software Freedom Conservancy?
So yes, we together with the Conservancy decided that it made sense for Racket as a larger project that was mostly not benefiting from being part of that larger organization and just to move to being a separate organization. And so part of the process here is successfully managing that transition for the funds that they hold for us to transfer them over to the Racket Foundation, and in addition to the intellectual property rights that they have that will also get transferred over, and other things like that.
I wasn't going to ask, but since you brought it up, so you said there are new indentation styles and guides implemented. Is any one of them the one that has the parentheses, the closing parentheses under the open parentheses?
So Dr. Racket has a new feature where if you try to do that, it launches NetHack.
Just to be clear, the new Dr. Racket feature isn't like a new style guide thing. It's just if you press tab multiple times, it'll change the indentation level if the language says there's multiple ways you could indent something.
It's actually even smaller than that. It goes backwards now.
Oh, it only goes backwards.
Cycle forward and around, and now you can backwards.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I just thought I'd help.
If other people have questions, by the way, you should let other people ask questions.
I'm looking for hands.
Good. One thing that BC is still used for is bootstrapping without requiring Shea install. So you can break the dependency loop, at least to some extent, with the C implementation.
So you don't need Shea installed to bootstrap Shea because of the PB interpreter.
Right. So you need either Shea or Racket installed.
If you want to rebootstrap, yeah. So I think this path will continue to exist too. We can keep BC running well enough so that there is, where it's useful, that path to get Shea scheme bootstrapped.
So the concrete question then is, would there be interest, assuming people aren't using BC for other things that we're not aware of just like taking things that are currently in BC and are making the implementation more difficult and removing them so that BC is still useful for bootstrapping, but maybe, for example, doesn't need the networking support or something, although that might be enough in RKTIO that...
Yeah, that particular thing happens not to be the problem, but I think I could imagine, like, one of the things that's painful with BC is the conversion for garbage collection that expands, C pre-processes the code and runs it into it, and that's fragile. And then you don't have to do that to use it as a bootstrapping mechanism. So I can imagine we simplify things along those lines.
Although CGC is also interesting.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah, but it doesn't need to swap threads.
Yes.
So yes, we could either have default configurations. It's even simpler to make it a bootstrapping path.
But I guess one thing, my feeling is that mostly not changing things is always easier than changing things. And so if something changed that made X form, the system Matthew was talking about, break or hard to maintain, then perhaps that's a reason to get rid of it. But as long as nothing breaks, then it's hard to justify big changes to anything that we're not making significant use of.
I think Philip may have something to add here.
I was just going to say, I maintain, after being induced to it at a previous RacketCon, the packaging of Racket for the Geeks distribution, which by policy puts a really strong emphasis on bootstrapping from source as much as possible. So we go through this process very thoroughly, including re-bootstrapping Shay's scheme via a non-Shay scheme Racket. The one essential hole right now in a purely bootstrapping from source perspective is that you do need to have the expander specifically pre-expanded to embed in the BC binary, which it is fortunately still pretty human readable, but you can't expand the expander without the previous expander, and BC does use the Racket implemented expander. But other than that, it is in pretty good shape for bootstrapping.
I will just say that I realize that this isn't always the criteria people use for determining bootstrapping, but the fully expanded expander is, as fully expanded scheme code, is much easier to understand than the C implemented old expander that was nominally source code.
Look, it's human readable enough that sometimes reading the diff, I get confused about whether I'm reading the generated code or the source code.
Other questions?
Hey, Robbie, do you want to put resyntax into Dr. Racket? I mean, I got weekends. We could make it happen.
Sure. That'd be great.
Matthew, any plans for teaching versions of Rhombus?
By teaching, you mean like intro course? I've thought about that, but I would welcome people to think about it more. I think Sam maybe is the
Yeah, so I have an undergraduate student who's been working on things in this direction, and previously built a version of 2HTTP image on top of the Rhombus picked library, and so as a first step, and also something like Big Bang on top of that. And next step is to think more about the actual language and what you want to cut down. I'm happy to hear anyone's thoughts about what a good teaching language focused version of Rhombus ought to look like which features should it not have, which features should it have,
how many languages, what subset should be the delta between
that sort of thing. And there's lots of interesting questions there, and I've thought about some of them, but there's lots more.
There's a textbook to be written, I suppose.
Yeah. Also, anyone who wants to come up with an AI model that can convert all my course videos to whatever language we come up with, that would be a valuable addition as well.
Further. Shall we?
Are there any other questions online?
All right. Well, shall we thank our panelists, call this edition of RacketCon to a close, and get excited about next year? Thank you all.
We just want to